Hey there, it's once again time to calibrate. Mark here, and welcome to episode 45. Joining me today, as usual, are Bob and Brent, and we also have a terrific guest lined up. Welcome to the show, Cat Shoulders.
Hey, thanks for having me.
No problem. Thank you for coming. As per the laws of watch podcasting, we must begin with wrist checks. What's on the wrist there, Cat?
Today I'm wearing my Seiko 5. Let's see if I can get it out of the sunlight here. Rowing Blazer. So it's the pink dial that they did, and I've got it on like the Forstner. What is this? The Comfit sort of
Yeah, that looks
strap
really cool.
that they have, vintage looking, and I thought kind of looks good on this kind of small vintage Seiko. But yeah, I haven't worn this one in a little while, so I wanted a little bit of color today.
Very cool. What about you, Bob?
Yeah.
I actually just got a new watch yesterday, the UTD 8000 from RZE Watches, titanium
Yeah.
and an elastic strap that's very comfortable. And I'm doing a bathroom renovation right now, so it's kind of a good companion for that.
Yeah, those are really neat. I like those a lot.
Yeah, it's really cool. I might grab the bracelet eventually for it too, but yeah, I'm loving it.
Is the strap similar to like an Apple Watch strap? Does it Velcro around? Okay. Yeah.
Here, we'll do a little ASMR for the listeners. But yeah, it's super comfortable.
They'll either love it or hate it.
Yeah.
Chalk me up in the hate it.
The strap, not the watch. We realized, yeah.
What about you, Brent?
Actually, I'm back on the Longines Legend Diver. Yesterday I did that post about the new Hydro Conquest, and the engagement and the comments were just insane. And a lot of the questions people were asking was, so if you take the Hydro Conquest 39, you compare it to the Legend Diver 39, what do you think? And so today I made a post about it because I think that they're not really comparable. Like, it's like apples and oranges a little bit. Yeah, they're divers. Yeah, they're both from Longines, but one is very much aimed at a broad spectrum, a very broad market, I think, and I believe it will probably do very well for them as a result. It's not really an enthusiast driven watch. It is a big market driven watch, and this one is like a little bit more quirky, a little bit more high spec, a little bit more niche. And so I thought, I'm gonna wear it as a result today, since I posted about it. But it is probably amongst the top 3 that I wear the most often. It's very comfortable. Love this piece.
Yeah, I like those a lot.
You've had that for what, 2 years now almost?
It's probably close to 2 years. You're right, Mark. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember when you got it, you were quite stoked about it.
Yeah.
So I've got on my Grand Seiko SBGE 257 with the green dial and the spring drive GMT movement. I'm wearing it because this is the watch that I wrote about for my first article that I ever wrote on Worn and Wound.
Oh, wow.
So seeing that we have Cat with us today seemed fitting. And
awesome.
It had been a while since I worn it, so you always fall in love with it all over again because of all the little details. And yeah, really, I'm very happy with this one.
Beautiful.
Still have it. Hey, that's going to be 3 years with this watch coming this April.
That's awesome.
For me, that's a long.
That's like a record, yeah.
Yeah, that's a long time. So now, for those of you who are living under a rock, here's a bit of a brief bio about Cat.
Oh,
Cat Shoulders. Yeah.
This is your life.
Oh, wow.
We've done that before.
Is this the Wikipedia page?
Not necessarily. So Cat Shoulders is the media manager at Worn and Wound, where she plays a key role in shaping one of the most influential voices in modern watch media across editorial, video, and podcast content. She's also the co-founder and co-host of the 10 and 2 podcast, a show known for its thoughtful, honest conversations about watches and the industry at large. Beyond media, Cat is an accomplished photographer with a distinctive visual style that has helped redefine how watches are presented and experienced online. A respected voice in the enthusiast community, she brings a unique perspective that bridges storytelling, aesthetics, and a deep passion for horology. During my time writing for Worn and Wound, Cat was an incredible supporter, and we even collaborated on a few projects. Since then, she has become a good friend, and I'm so happy to finally have her on the show. Now, funny side note. Back when Catlin and Kat were workshopping their podcast on Instagram, they asked the followers if they could come up with a name for the show. I probably thought up, half a dozen names. None of them were very good. And I don't know if you guys are like me, but if I'm in a room or a gathering with people and someone comes up with a really good joke or a really good line, I
Mhm.
kind of get upset that I didn't think of it first. And someone came up with the name 10 and 2, and 10
Yeah, it was
spelled Tenn
yeah.
and 2. And that is just so perfect. And I'm so pissed that I didn't think of it myself.
You know who it was? If you've been on Instagram a while, it was, Bro Dinky.
Really?
You know that
Mm.
account? Yeah,
Yes, yes,
he is
yes.
the one that came up with that name. Yeah, it was perfect.
It was perfect. I mean, that's fantastic.
Well, thanks, Mark. That was very sweet of you to say.
No, no problem. That was, like I said, I've always wanted you to come on board. And in fact, when we first started talking about having this podcast going, you were one of the first guests I had on the list.
Awesome.
But you're
I'm
here now,
glad
so
to
we're great.
yeah, glad to finally make it.
Yeah, thank you, thank you. So that's it. So yeah, you wear a lot of hats: media manager, podcaster,
Yeah.
photographer. What's the through line that connects to everything that you do?
Watches. Yeah, I mean, that is it. But I think, to, maybe in a little bit more detail, probably, storytelling is a big thing at Warner Wound, as you know, Mark, for sure, and, that's the thing I love to do the most is find the story in whatever I'm shooting, even if it's, just a very basic editorial photo shoot for someone that's doing a review, what's the story I can tell with the photographs that I'm shooting, and I always try to have the mindset of, like, an enthusiast, a collector, because that's what I was, and that's what I always wanted to see, and, we look at these great photos that brands post, and, they're wonderful. There's some, very model-esque looking woman or man climbing a a very tall mountain or doing something extravagant, and don't get me wrong, those images are beautiful, but I always try to think of someone that's actually gonna wear this watch and where they wanna see it in the context that they wanna see it, do they wanna see it on their desk or their side table? Um, you know, uh, but that's a very long-winded answer to say storytelling is, I guess, the thing that connects everything together for me, along with watches, obviously.
So you have a bunch of roles, as Mark mentioned, that you're
Yeah,
juggling. Do
yeah.
you connect with one more than the other? Is there like a home
Yeah,
base role? Is it photography or?
yeah. It's funny because, my title now is media director, and I oversee everything media here, so from
Mhm.
copywriting to social media to podcasts and photos and videos. But when I am introduced to people that don't know anything about Ward& and Wild, don't know anything about the industry, I often just tell them I'm a photographer still because that's the easiest thing I think they can understand.
Mhm.
And I think at heart, like, that's the role that I still consider myself as photographer, even though I do very little shooting nowadays, but it's still the thing I'm the most passionate about. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Do you remember the exact moment watches clicked for you? Like, how did you go from physical therapy to product lifestyle photographer to social media management, and then end up,
Yeah.
including watches into the mix?
Yeah, I think I've always had a love for watches, from a very young age. I've loved gadgets in general. I was the kid that wanted the Swiss Army knife and all the cool pens and pencils in school and the cool backpack, and so I just loved, like, very tactile things, and, over the years, have sort of forgotten about it, wore watches somewhat through high school, fossils and things that I could afford, but it was gosh, I don't remember the year, maybe 2012, 13, 14, somewhere around there. I was in college and, or had gone back to college for PT school, and Valentine's Day was rolling around, and I was, like, looking at ideas to gift, and then I saw, like, a his and her watch, and then I started looking up Seikos, and then I started somehow ended up in Watch You Seek. I don't even know how I got to that point, but and that was it. Like, once I saw the forums and I started diving into watches and, "Oh, there's mechanical watches," and, "Oh, I remember that. Yeah, my grandfather had something like that," and just started learning about it, and it was, like, deep into the rabbit hole I went immediately. And I think, I selfishly bought the watches for us, really for me, for Valentine's that year, and it was a pair of Seikos, actually, and, yeah, that was it. Like, I I bought that and then immediately wanted another and wanted to find out more about watches, and then, yeah, I was basically hooked from that point.
Yeah, familiar story.
Yeah.
Seiko forums, uh-oh.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
snare has been snared and you're stuck.
Yeah, it was I guess I wasn't quite on the Instagram train at the time. Their Instagram was around, but I wasn't involved in the community in that aspect or Facebook or anything. But, yeah, immediately joined Watch You Seek, and then, yeah, just started, to collect things and research and spend every moment reading about watches pretty much. And reading Worn and Wound,
Of
especially,
course.
yeah, at the time, yeah. Houdinki and all of those.
And what did your early collecting phase look like? What would surprise people about it today?
Oof. I think, thing that would probably surprise people the most, maybe that my collection was actually, like, smaller watches in general. People that know me now know that I am not afraid to wear a larger watch. Often, my watches are larger. They're divers, they're sport watches. But when I first got into, I guess, the hobby or collecting, I was, timid by larger pieces, and especially, maybe the forum had a lot to do with that because it was a lot of really old school people, I'll say in a very nice way, that traditional, and, women should be wearing watches that are this size and no larger, and so I think that really influenced me early on to stay within, like, under 36 millimeters, and, um, in a lot of ways, I wasn't really happy with that collection, which is why I rotated so much until I started to be more comfortable, and it took me going to, like, my first watch meetup and seeing other people, Catelyn being one of them, wearing a huge, Speedmaster at the time, and I was like, "Oh, that looks awesome. She can pull it off," and being more comfortable, and honestly, it's why I think today it's still really important for us at Worn and Wound, for others to showcase larger watches on women because it's totally fine, and I think people, particularly women, are still timid to pick up larger pieces. I hear it when I'm in New York in the showroom. Women come in and are looking to buy watches, and are like, "I don't know if this is too big," and, I'm all about if you like it and it's comfortable, you should wear it, point blank. Um, but yeah, I think that's probably the most surprising thing is, like, a lot of my watches were on the smaller side, which, I deviate from now.
So we just heard from your bio, for example, just how successful your path has been moving forward into this realm. I'm curious, was there ever a moment where something didn't go exactly to plan, where it didn't go well, whether it was professionally or creatively, or maybe even just buying the wrong watch
Oh, yeah.
that somehow shaped where you are right now?
Hmm. It's a great question. Um, yeah, I've made a lot of buying mistakes. I can admit that for sure. And Mark knows there's a lot of watches that have gone through my collection, and I certainly, I mean, some people would consider me a flipper. I don't necessarily like the term because I don't buy with the purpose of flipping, but I have, sold a lot of watches. Um, but in terms of my career and, like, the career path, to get here, I will say I have just been incredibly lucky. I truly have. I remember telling my husband that I wanted to quit my job in physical therapy at a hospital that was good paying and do a podcast, and he was like, "Okay, sure." But he saw that I've always had ambition, and, like, that's, you know, I could be flipping burgers and I'll be, like, the best burger flipper you can, I'm just like, whatever task you give me, I'm gonna just do it to the best of my ability, and I'm gonna learn everything about it to try to be the best, and so I have an internal competition with myself, and, um, I think I honestly, I think me and Catlin we got into it at the right time. If we had done it now, I don't think we would have been as successful. It was just, like, the right moment, everything kinda really fell into place. We made all the right connections, and, if I hadn't bought a camera, that certainly would have changed the trajectory, right? And, yeah, I picked up a camera because brands were sending us watches and said, "Take photos," and we were posting on social media, and then that was another rabbit hole of learning how to do photography and watching YouTube videos literally every day until I could master this thing and understand it. And yeah, I have to just say I've just really been lucky with everything that's fallen into place and all the steps and micro steps along the way and people that have helped me and really, yeah, led me to where I am now here at Worn and Wound. But I've been lucky in that I haven't failed big yet.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
If I count quickly there, I think that you used the word lucky 3 times, and yet as you described that luck, it seemed to me like an awful lot of hard work figuring things out
Yeah.
and getting things done. So that's what I
Yeah.
often find about luck is luck finds the people who are already hard at work.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. There is a lot of work, and as you guys know, and kudos to you for I can't remember what episode you get, 30 something episodes, right, Mark? I can't remember that you're on now.
This is 45.
Oh, 45. Wow, that's incredible. It is not easy, like, recording every single week, and there's weeks where you're just like, "Oh, do we have to? Do we really need to do this?" And, you keep pushing through, and I think what I've seen over the time that I've been in this industry is a lot of either podcasts come and go or blogs come and go because people underestimate the amount of work that you have to put into it. So anyone that's still around and still doing it, I give so much props to because I know the hard work that is involved and it seems easy from the outside just hitting play and watching something or listening to something. And people can be very critical at times, but uh there's so much work that goes on and on the backside too. But yes, I lucky, but also yeah, worked my butt off to get here. Yeah.
So the 10 and 2 podcast was one of the most respected voices in Watch Media.
Oh,
What did you
thanks.
guys think you got right early on?
Um, a big thing I think was the fact that we were 2 women talking about watches in a moment that there really wasn't, and there is so much more women involved in the hobby now, whether it's, influencers or podcasters or writers, which makes me feel really good, and, I think just at the time when 2018, 2019, I can't remember when we started the podcast, there just wasn't. There was, like, Kara from Hodinkee that was occasionally on the podcast over there, but, that was kind of a rarity, and I think we were just unique voices and in the space. And honestly, I think, like, if anyone is interested in sort of breaking through, I think that's the thing you have to break through is, like, what is your voice? What are you bringing of value to this community? You guys have your own unique voice, and I think, like, that's the most important thing is how can you kinda stand out from everyone else? But yeah, I don't think we were, like, influential in any way. I don't consider us I feel like we were just friends that hopped on and chatted for an hour every week? Um, but now she's working at a big old Swiss watch brand, and I'm over here at Worn and Wound, so something worked out right?
That's awesome.
Yeah, I think that's a big new watch brand.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Did you guys kind of have a clear vision for 10 and 2 at the start, or did it evolve organically over time? How
It
did that
definitely
all?
evolved.
Yeah.
Yeah, we started out with just like, "Let's just record this thing." We don't know anything about podcasting, or photography or running a media channel, and I think within the first year, we were like, "Okay, this is actually something. This is going somewhere," and gosh, I think maybe a year and a half or maybe close to 2 years after we started, COVID hit, and we were both furloughed from our jobs for a while, me especially working in a outpatient, hospital setting. So for, like, 3 or 4 months, we had nothing to do but record. So we upped recording to twice a week, which is you guys know is, like, kinda crazy to do. And all of these watch CEOs and PR people were home doing nothing. So we were able to just get some amazing people on our podcast, and it just took off, and we started getting sponsorships in, which is a whole nother level in not knowing anything about that, and I have a lot of things to say. I won't say publicly, but, it quickly
Come
turned into
on.
a business. Yeah,
Come
it
on.
quickly
No one's listening. You tell
no
us.
one's listening. It turned into a business really quickly for us, and we weren't we didn't have any business experience, and there's a lot that I took away and learned from doing that podcast, but, it certainly evolved from 2 friends recording to this is a business now, and we have jobs, and we have things we have to do every week, and, um, it could even put pressure on the relationship with us as friends of back and forth. And the good thing is, like, we also, like, we never really had to get on to each other about anything. We really knew what our roles were in place was and everything that we did. I edited, she did social media, and one of us would always get back to whatever brand was reaching out. But yeah, it morphed into a, a part-time job. And you guys know this. This is a part-time job to do this every single week and to keep up with it in social media and to keep growing, especially if that's your goal. And so with us, kind of moving on to other career roles, it began to be a bit much for us to do this and to do our jobs that were also now really demanding. Catlin going to Norcane, who was just really starting off and really, really busy, kind of full speed ahead, and then me jumping into Worn and Wound and taking over at a time that they were really growing their media. And yeah, we just ran out of time to record with each other. We barely see each other now. I hate to say, but we're busy and traveling, and it just became really hard for us to kind of manage both things. It was kind of like one or the other.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I'm not a sort of person who likes to dwell on the past, specifically on things that I might regret, but I'm curious
Mhm.
when you look at even the success that you had, was if you look back on that now, was there ever a moment where you said, "I wish we had done this maybe instead, or maybe gone that way instead"?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think I wish we would have found help and used the proceeds we were making from, let's just say, sponsorships to the podcast to put towards an intern or a part timer that could have helped us with, managing our social media accounts and managing the website. We had a website too, we would post on and writing copy for each episode. And, um, I will say also, that there's so many more tools now to do podcasts that make your life incredibly easier that I did not have at that. I mean, I would spend there were times I spent, 2, 3 hours editing, especially if we had a guest that the audio wasn't great, and you guys know this. It's like really massaging that audio to be clear.
What? That's the easy
Um,
part.
Now it's not so bad,
No.
but
Hey,
at the
listen, we
time,
do
it was
4 tracks, so
oh,
trust
yeah.
me, it's
It took forever, and I was OCD about our podcast. I would take out all the ums and the yeahs, and all of that because I wanted the listener to have the best experience, so I did all of that manually. Now you can do it with the hit of a button, which is incredible. But we didn't have those tools, and yeah, I think just early on, if we could have used some of that budget, which really didn't go anywhere personally with us, we actually still have money in our our 10 and 2 account. We're just like, "It's a rainy day, maybe we'll go do a trip or something," but I wish we would have put that into a part-timer that could have helped us because I think that would have really taken us to perhaps the next level, and making that, like, the big thing for us instead of us sort of branching off. And, I'm very glad of where I am today and, very happy to be where I am, but maybe that would have led to a different trajectory perhaps. I don't know.
Sure.
yeah, maybe that's what Scottish Watches did right with Ms. Yell.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're killing it.
So in your opinion, what makes a great podcast today versus what it was like 5 years ago, apart from the editing and the
Yeah, the editing help from AI. Um, yeah, I think, a again, I'll bring it back to just making sure you have your own voice. I think that's really important, and you're not just an echo chamber of what's being said on social media. Um, I really value when people have strong opinions, even if they're bad, and even if I don't agree with them. I value that they're vocal about them, and I think in a world now that so much is being written by AI and so much is just jargon from press releases, and you read articles and blogs, and you're like, "I don't know if they like this watch or didn't like this watch," when you get done and you get to the bottom of that article. And I feel like that's something that we value at Warner Wow, and I'm very proud to work here because, Kazan has very strong opinions, Weiss has really strong opinions, and I like that they're not afraid to say them, even if it means, is that brand going to work with us in the future? Who knows, and it's okay if they don't. But I think having strong opinions is one, and just knowing, what your sort of niche is too, and what you're bringing to the table in terms of a different voice out there. Um, that those are 2 things I would say kind of I would take into consideration. Quality, that stuff's really easy nowadays, again, with the help that you can get with editing and microphones that are super easy to use and all of these new tools that we have now. But, yeah, in particular, those things are, I think, important.
Do you think that maybe we're reaching a saturation point for things like watch podcasts or watch media in general?
Yeah, that's a great question. Part of me thinks yes, and part of me thinks no, because as I mentioned earlier, I think there's a lot of people that start it up and then give up after 6 months, right? And then they're gone, and then you don't hear from them again. So, while I do think sometimes I'm like, "Oh, wow, another podcast or another blog," or, whatever it might be, um, they sometimes don't last. So really the people that are still doing it today, there's really not that many that have a podcast after a year or 2 years. So, I think there's still value to the people that wanna start one, or, an Instagram or a YouTube channel, or whatever it might be. And, again, the important thing is, like, what are you bringing to the table that's different than everybody else? If you can't find that, then you are bringing value to the industry, Um, but if you can't, if you're finding a hard time, then you kinda have to, like, reassess, I think, for sure.
I find some of my favorite watch podcast episodes, including our own, barely talk about watches.
Yeah.
Do you think audiences are more interested in watch expertise now, or is it more personality?
I think there is. Yeah, I think there's still a group of people craving watch conversation. We've deviated from the past too in our podcast to talk about travel and bags and photography and all sorts of things, and there's
Restaurants,
certainly. What's that?
restaurants, food.
Yeah, food especially. Um, but, I think the core audience wants to hear about watches, and we see that when we look at the data and we look at the episodes, and when we do things like watch drafts, or we're really having a heavy topic on watches in an episode. Those episodes tend to have a higher download rate than, say, like a time on screen where Kazan's talking about movies, or changing gears where I'm talking about photography. So
Mhm, okay.
clearly there's an audience level that, like, really, really cares about the watch stuff as, like, their number one priority. The other stuff, maybe occasionally they tune in. Um, but I think, yeah, I think there's still people hungry for watch knowledge out there. Yeah, for certain.
Your role at Warner Wound sits at the intersection of editorial, video, and community. How do you define what you do?
Ugh, I don't even know. It's hard. It's like, yeah, what is a media director? I don't know. Someone that directs all the media. It's tough because we have so many different divisions of Worn and Wound, and we have the shop, and we have the partnership team, and then we, does the commercial work and white label work, and then we have our editorial team, and I really work for all of them. I service all of those departments in different ways, and I explain this all the time to people, but it feels like, the departments have my hands, and I'm constantly just sort of being pulled in different directions in a good way, but it's a lot of code switching through the day, because the way that the shop does things, as you know, Mark, especially, is different than editorial. And the stuff that editorial does, there's a clear defined line between that and partnerships. So I have to know everybody, and I have to know how everything works, and, the great thing is, like, we all communicate really well at Worn and Wound, and we have incredible directors working with Ricardo, working with Nelly, working with Kyle, and obviously Zach Kazan. Um, they're very, very good at what they do, which makes my job 10 times easier, and they're wonderful to work with and for, so, um I it is truly it's truly hard to, like, define my role, because I guess my role is to service all these departments in all of their media needs. And the tough part about it is, like, because of the growth that we're having, where do we spend our time and resources? Where do I allow my full-time team to dedicate the time to? There might be huge partnership projects on deck that we need to devote time to, where editorial might have to take a back seat, or maybe shop photos have to take a back seat. So it's a constant, like, balance and figuring that out. And where do we hire someone to come in and help part-time and outsource this project or that project? And um, yeah, it's a role that I think is always going to be undefined and grow, and things taken away, and things added to constantly, I think, for my however long my career is here at Worn and Wound. In a way, it's certainly shifted from the early days too, and when I first started.
Yeah, I'll tell you, when I was writing for Warner Wound, writing in the voice of an editorial versus writing for partnerships
Yeah,
versus writing for the shop versus
yeah,
writing for the wind-up shows, it's all very different, and it took
yeah,
me a while, especially since I started writing for editorial first, to
yeah,
shift gears to partnerships and how we were promoting product,
yeah.
and then getting to do copyright, which is what I was doing mostly towards the end, is most of the copywriting, is, you know, not putting myself into the copywriting. And then we shifted gears at one point, and then we started putting ourselves into the copywriting in order to make it different,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
it was challenging. And like you said, everybody's communicates very well, but it's very different working with Zach Kazan as it is working for Kyle Snar.
Yeah,
Those are
yeah,
two very different dudes.
yeah, totally.
And working with you and for you too is same
Yeah.
thing. Very different people. And then we had Devin that came on board
Mhm,
at the time, and then getting to know him, and
mhm.
doing things differently for the
Yeah.
shop and so forth. So anyways, it was interesting. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, and we've taken away from that too, and we've gotten feedback from contributors that have worked with us in the past that do a lot of different writing, and we've honestly learned that it is difficult to be a writer that is doing all of those different sort of facets at Worn and Wound. And what we've done is scaled back on, maybe you're not writing for every department, maybe you're just an editorial writer, maybe you're just writing for the shop occasionally, or and especially now partnership really being a separate entity, because it again, it's that code switching that you have to do. It's pretty tough. Yeah.
It was fun though. I mean, there was a time where I was writing every day almost,
Yeah.
for one thing or another. And when, before windups, we got to get things out. Before
Yeah.
more Watches and Wonders, after Watches and Wonders, during Watches and Wonders.
Well, I'm
Yeah, it
glad you
was.
thought it was fun, because I hate writing. It's not fun to me.
Look, I've said this before on the podcast. Um, I'm a big time watch nerd. I've loved watches for my entire life, and I'm not a young man. And doing the copywriting is fun when you're inspired by the watch,
Mhm.
right? You get the copyright from them, their version of a press release, and you got to come up with your own words to come up with something. If you're inspired by the watch, 500-600 words, no problem.
Yeah.
If you're not inspired by the watch, that page stays blank for hours,
Yeah.
and it's hard. It's hard work, and to make it sound different than the press release, that in our own voice and one on one voice. Yeah, yeah. Zach is that, and I butted heads a couple of times, let's say.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was quite special. I don't regret any of the time that I spent working there. It was a lot
Well,
of fun.
good.
I
That's
really,
good to
really
hear.
enjoyed it. Yeah.
Yeah. Bob and Brent, do you both do any writing at all?
Yeah, Brent does a lot of writing.
I
Yeah.
block about 4 hours a day. Yeah, but
Oh,
and
wow.
that's not an exaggeration. In fact, there'll be times where, I start usually around 8 a.m. And I'll go till noon, and then sometimes it'll be 2:30, and my wife will say, "I thought you were going to stop at noon." And so yeah, the writing is the number one thing. Like, I mean, I know that a lot of people associate me with photography, which is, interesting
Mhm.
from your story, because to me, and I think people who knew me long before watches, they would associate me with writing,
Mm.
not with the not with the photography end of things. So
Yeah.
that's still my number one job, and then probably photography is number two. So yeah, a lot of
Yeah.
it.
I actually caught a little bit of the writing bug. I'm not a writer, but Brent does a print magazine. He's done just one so far, right, Brent?
Well, this the
This is a third one.
third one's coming out. Yeah. this April 23rd. Yeah.
Yeah. So he had me write an article on a travel article on a trip to Curacao that I'd taken, and I really enjoyed it. And then when I saw it actually in print, it just kind of I
Yeah.
got got the juices flowing. So
Yeah.
I've done a couple of things here and there, but definitely not my primary.
Yeah. That's
Uh,
awesome though,
yeah,
to have something so quickly in print, 'cause I
yeah,
feel like there's a lot of people that work really hard their whole careers to make that happen, you know?
yeah.
But it makes a huge difference. I remember, so before Worn and Wound, I worked at Watchanista for a couple of years, and they started a print magazine while I was there, and had my photos printed in it, and I was like, "This is a whole different feeling, a
Oh
whole
yeah,
different feeling
yeah,
to see a physical." And I've never thought to print out watch photos, and it's probably something I should do more often, but it felt so special, and it felt so different, and there's,
yeah.
like, this tangible thing, it's not just, like, on the internet,
Feels more
out
real.
there. Yeah, it does feel real, like, "Oh, there's people that are gonna read this or look at these, photos," but, no, that's really cool, and I hope you do more writing. I think, to me, the best thing you can do for, for writing in general is just to write every day, and even if it's something that's not even going out anywhere, like, I think it's just like a muscle memory that you have to kick in, and if I don't write for a really long time, it really takes me forever to write even the most simple piece, but if I'm writing pretty frequently, it becomes really easier for me to do. But that being said, yeah, I wish I had more time to write. I I don't anymore as much, but it is fun, and I think there's certainly value to having people with like you guys with authentic opinions, writing stuff out there.
I remember the first time I'd written something for Worn and Wound, and it appeared in my Google Now feed. I've got all kinds of news about politics,
Yeah,
this, that, whatever, all the interests of some watches here, Gear Patrol. All of a sudden, I saw Worn and Wound, Mark Levesque in my Google Now. Like, whoa! I think I
yeah.
screenshot it and I sent it to Kazan and to Zach Weiss. Say, look at this.
Yeah, it is cool. It's I have a similar feeling when I'm perusing YouTube in my own, like, photography, looking at videos, watching something that's not watch related per se, and then one of our Worn and Wound videos pops up somewhere. I'm like, "Oh, that's cool."
Yeah.
The algorithm is algorithming right now.
Yeah.
The magazine I used to write for in the 90s would send me 5 or 6 copies every issue. And I remember I used to get that box and I'd get so proud. I'd open it up and there was my name in print and then my picture next to my bio. And then,
Yeah,
further into the magazine, the actual article that I wrote, it was really, really cool. I still have stacks of those magazines somewhere in a
that's
box.
awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm curious, like, do you all think that there's gonna be a time that print is gonna make a comeback, especially with the way
This is
things
a
are
prime
moving
question.
now? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think I've told this story before. It might have even been on this podcast, but when I proposed to my wife, who also works with us and does like our videography and stuff, I said, we're out in the hot tub one morning. I said, you're going to think I'm crazy, but I really think that we should publish a print magazine alongside. And she didn't think I was crazy, actually. She was cautiously optimistic about it. But I really believe that magazines, and we talked to Roger Rigger the other day, and I think he's kind of like lockstep with how I feel about it, is that the traditional newsstand magazine may not be the future of magazines, but I do
Mhm.
believe in a sort of a direct to consumer model, subscription based, or for instance, what we do when we launch is we tend to launch in conjunction with one of the timepiece shows here in Canada, so that we know that
Yeah.
there's nothing that's going to get pulped or that doesn't get sold. It's going to go directly into the hands of somebody who is interested in this material, and they will value
Yeah.
it. And I think that along with them valuing it, you have to make the product more valuable. And that includes things like tactility, the
Yeah.
quality of the print, the quality of the paper, the weight of it. And so in some respect, I think it's funny, before this podcast began, we were talking about AI and how the younger generation is kind of maybe rebelling a little bit against AI. And I feel that maybe for them too, they're going to find a different kind of authenticity and a return to that. I don't think print ever disappeared, but certainly um, print itself as a medium is a very expensive venture, and it's a very
Yeah,
time-consuming venture, but it also lends credibility and authenticity to the thing that gets printed, because
sure.
nobody takes that amount of money or time to produce something if it's worthless. And so
Mhm.
I do believe that even in the watch sphere, brands really value that. The conversations we have with brands at the calibrated wrist, used to be all about the website, and now we're finding increasingly when they're talking to us, they say, "What gets us in the magazine?"
Yeah.
That's like the first question. And certainly, when you're dealing with traditional Swiss maisons, um, you know, they could fall asleep while you're talking about the web, and then
Yeah.
all of a sudden they
Yeah.
hear print and they perk up. So I do
Yeah.
believe that I don't know if I want to call it a renaissance. I'm not talking about volume, but I'm talking about
Mhm.
appreciation and quality. I think
Yeah.
it's definitely a realm to explore for sure.
Yeah, I think there's a world where people are maybe reaching a point of exhaustion with internet media in general, and you see more and more people dropping off of things like Instagram and social media and getting rid of it because they want to they value I guess like more intensive content, in general. And I have a shelf behind me full of, magazines, and, I'm a big reader of the Hodinkee magazine. I love it. I love that they continue with that. I hope they don't stop doing it. And Gear Patrol was another one for a long time that I valued. That was a little bit more sales driven, but they still did really cool content pieces and storytelling. And um, Field Mag is another one I subscribe to. And yeah, I feel like that is the thing that's lacking the most in this industry, because there's really only a few players that are doing magazines, and I know it's expensive. We've thought about it, and we're just like, "Yeah, it's just the cost of, doing something like that." But, um, I hope that we see a resurgence of that, in general. And to your point, maybe it's not a monthly thing, it's not a weekly thing, but it maybe is a quarterly thing or something. But I highly value that, and I think, there's certainly pieces that I know, online pieces that I go back to, whether it's a video, whether it's an article that I read years later, and I keep going back to the same pieces because I think they're really, really well told or done. Um, and those are the types of things that should live in print and should live on for a very long time. But it gets lost in the ethos of the internet when you're doing, 4 or 5 posts a day. Everyone's trying to just it's a it's a race, who can get this up the fastest when a new watch is released and who can talk about it.
First to publish, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I don't know, it's interesting, we'll see, but I see a change happening, and especially with AI and people valuing the things that we can hold and touch and feel, maybe more so in the coming years than maybe hopefully ever before, but we'll see.
Brent, you gotta make sure to send Kat the latest issue and maybe even send the back issues if you can.
Yeah, I'd love to check it out.
I'll
She
do
would
that.
Yeah,
appreciate
it's
it for
awesome.
sure. So what's the biggest shift you've seen in watch media since you joined Worn and Wound? Is it that? Is that people are dropping off and are getting a little tired of
I think so. I think people wanna hear real opinions now, and, in the last 5, 6, 7 years, we saw a lot of different people come into the media space, a lot of podcasters, a lot of influencers, and I don't think there's anything wrong with them at all, but if you're not bringing anything new to the table, eventually, what are you talking about? And I just hear over and over again, especially when I'm at, a wind-up fair, and, maybe you guys can agree with the stuff that you do, the fairs that you do in Canada. People just like they're like, "We love the podcast. We love hearing your voices and your opinions and your videos." And that's what people want. And I think if you're in this space right now, it's really, really important to be authentic, and, transparent is another thing too. And yeah, I think that's the shift we're gonna see. We're gonna see people value writers again in a way that maybe they kinda lost in the last couple of years, you know?
Hmm, it's true. And how do you balance enthusiasm with critical honesty when covering brands?
Yeah, I feel like that's more of a Kazan question because I don't do a lot of reviews. I tend to do more of the storytelling stuff, especially on the commercial and partnership side. But I will say, from my point of view, and this is a reason I love working here, is when me and Kyle and Nelly, when we have these big partnership projects, right? The brand is like, we want to pay you, we want to talk about this watch, but they bring us the project and they're like, talk about it in the way that you want to storytell it in the way that you want to, and that's what I love, is, like, we're not given these guardrails of, like, you have to say this or you have to do this. Obviously, we're being paid to do this commercial project for this brand, right? But we get to do it in our own way and on our own terms, and I've been so lucky that in the 4 years that I've been here, I have seen the transformation of brands, specifically like huge brands like, let's just say like a Casio or Citizen Group, and they come to us, and when we work with them, the meetings are like 5 minutes because they're like, "You guys got this. We trust you. We trust your storytelling, and you're gonna do this wash right, however you tell this story." So that to me is like the feather I can put in my cap of like we've done it the right way, and we've always been really transparent about pieces that are sponsored on the site. We let people know, but in a way, I love that we're not shying away from the fact that they're sponsored pieces either. I'm proud that they are. Yes, we get paid from the brands to do these stories, but that money allows me to travel across the United States to go do this and be away from my job for 5 days to go do this story and bring a team with me and uh, do this project. So I know people sort of turn their nose sometimes to the partnership work that anyone does, whether it's here, Hodinkee, or whatever. But I think the important part is to remain authentic, and we always, 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 always have the enthusiasts in mind. And if we don't, then I'm like, this isn't for us. This isn't for our audience. And we've turned things away, and we say no all the time to things that don't feel like Worn and Wound. I think people would be really surprised the amount of stuff that we say no to. But yeah, from my end, I think we have to always just try to be authentic as we can. But yeah, like I said, I don't get to write a ton of reviews, so in the editorial aspect, I can't really answer that too much.
You mentioned just now about the working with partnerships. I remember there's one campaign that I worked on with Kyle and Aaron for Rado for graduations. I
Yeah,
think you took the pictures for those.
maybe.
And yeah, it was really cool. Rado just literally said, "Here's the watches. This is roughly the theme we want," and then we took the ball and ran with it, and it came up with this
Yeah,
huge campaign. And it was really, really cool. Really well done.
yeah. I think that's like, yeah, that's the best thing when a brand can trust you at this point. And I think brands also come to us because we offer something that's different and a different a different point of view than I think some of the other medias have. They certainly give marketing dollars to, other blogs and influencers and things like that too, but when they come to us, they're reaching a different audience with that, it's not the biggest audience in the world. We don't claim to have that, but it's like the true authentic enthusiast. It's the people, and again, you guys see this with people that come to your fairs. It's the people that show up, and that's the most important audience I think you can have. People that travel from far and long away to come and see you, that's the audience you wanna hit, you know?
Yep, agreed.
Yeah.
I think it's important to talk about those kinds of things that you just mentioned there, because I sometimes I feel a little bit, whether it's through commentary on Instagram or through our website and that sort of thing, is that people have become maybe a little bit jaded by watch media, because watch media, of course, is different from a lot of other journalisms, if you want to call it those things, and that we are working part and parcel with the brand. There is a partnership there. There is a symbiotic
Mhm.
relationship.
Yeah.
I'm curious if you've ever felt, despite what you said in the last answer, did you ever feel indirectly, or maybe even more importantly, indirectly, a pressure to soften a hot take?
Um, yeah, I'm sure we have. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We've been called out by brands. We've received emails after something's gone live, a podcast or an article, but again, I think it's like we make it very clear when we're in these calls and meetings and discussions that if I'm joining for a partnership project, that there is a line between us and editorial. And oftentimes, brands are like, "Oh, can we get editorial to take a look at this piece too?" And it's like, we can ask. I can't guarantee. It's really Kazan's choice, at the end of the day. But certainly we try to connect those dots, and sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. It's really up to each of the department heads, whether it's Ricardo on the shop or Kazan on the editorial side. But certainly we've been in hot water. Yeah, for sure, for sure. But I don't know that we've actively I'll say, I know that I've edited out something from a podcast, so after the fact, we were like, "Yeah, maybe we'll take that little bit out. Maybe we'll silence that part of it." So, it certainly affects it, and I think sometimes it's easy to do in this setting, and I'm sure you guys can appreciate this because you're friends and you're close, and you do often forget, "Oh, I'm working right now. This is my job." Like, maybe there's sometimes a line that we cross that it's not even that we're afraid of hurting the brand's feelings, it's more of like, "This isn't professional." So, that's sometimes why we take things out too, or maybe we edit something if it's a little too harsh. But at the end of the day, we we also bounce the idea off of everyone, and Kazan's written a lot of pieces that have been strong, especially in, like, over the last year that he's sent to me and to Zach Weiss and said, "Is this take too strong? Like, am I being too harsh here?" And we'll read it. And if we can all sort of agree to give the thumbs up, then it goes live. But yeah, it's easy to just especially when you're recording a podcast, I think it's really easy to say things and not have a filter, especially when you're talking to people that you're friends with and you're close to. And, sometimes it's good to maybe reevaluate some of the things you say occasionally.
Yeah, there was a podcast we recorded not long ago, and after we finished recording, I hit stops recording, but we talked with the guest, just, goodbyes, whatever, and we were just chatting, and I remember throwing out this really hot take, this something pretty harsh, and then, a couple hours later, I go to edit the show, and I'd forgotten that it was after the recording. I thought it was in it,
Oh,
and I was trying to figure out how I was gonna cut that out in my
yeah,
head, and the whole time I'm editing the podcast, I'm waiting for that take to come up, and it's not coming up. I'm like, "What the hell?"
yeah,
And then I realized it was after the recording that I had said the
yeah.
stupidity.
Yeah, and to that point, we've had guests and people from brands on before that have recorded stuff, and again, in the heat of the moment, had to have said something, and after a couple hours after, they're like, "I think I wanna take that out," and we'll always oblige to do
Oh,
that,
sure, absolutely.
of course, but it's sometimes difficult when, again, you're having these conversations and things are flowing and, you speak freely, but I always have to watch myself. I feel like I'm pretty media trained at this point.
I don't regret ever saying that I hate NATOs and they're stupid and it's a waste
Yeah,
of money.
yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
I don't regret that at all.
You can throw them under the bus.
So you've been part of the coverage of major events like wind-ups and
Yeah.
watches and wonders. What does the audience not see behind the scenes that they'd be surprised with?
Oh my gosh, the lack of sleep probably from a lot of these events. You guys know this, and it's,
Oh, yeah.
especially and it's not only just watches and wonders, it's the fairs too because the setup, it takes a very long time. It's all hands on deck. I think that's something I always tell new employees when they start, especially if they're on my team. Like, we're media, yes. You're going to be taking out the trash. You're going to be picking up stuff. You're going to be setting up tables. Like it, there's no role here, big or small, when it comes to the fair. Like everyone is there to help, and it takes a whole day for us to set this up, and then hours to break it down usually. But when you have these events, they're, 2 or 3 days at a time. People don't understand that, like, brands are flying in from all over, and then they wanna go out to dinner, and they wanna go out, and I wanna see them too because I don't get to see them in person very often. So it's a lot of, you're at the event all day, you have maybe a tiny bit of break, change clothes, out at night, and you get back late, and then you're up again early the next morning to do it again, and after 3 or 4 days of it, it's pretty tiring. Um, and even when it's not the brands, we just came back from Dallas, and I spent almost every single night with our team, until the late hours of the night because I don't work with them in Brooklyn, and getting to see them in person and hang out, it means a lot to me, and especially building my own team and those relationships. So, um, yeah, it's a lot of hours. You're never really off the clock,
Mm.
for the amount of time that the show's going on, and same with Watches and Wonders, and I'm prepping myself. There's tips and things I've taken along the way to make them a little bit better and experience better, but certainly I think just all the hours that go into it, the team is online the entire time, and whether it's social media, whether we're at Watches and Wonders all day, and then we're back and we're all writing and editing until, 1 o'clock in the morning to get stuff out for the next day, but, um, Yeah, I think it's just all the hard work from the team that goes on behind the scenes.
I can say I'm very proficient at putting together the steel frames for the signage now. I've done quite a few.
Yeah.
I'm an expert at it, actually.
Yeah, yeah, you become that you can do it in your sleep. You're just, like,
Yeah,
imagining you're building these things.
yeah, yeah.
The way that Bob and I get through these things at the end of the day is we intersperse beer with bourbon and beer and
Oh,
bourbon.
That's the
yeah.
way to do it. Yeah, that's the way to do it for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah,
When
yeah.
when we break down, inevitably, there's so much food and stuff left behind on the booths that the brand they just as you know, they pack up and they leave. Oftentimes, brands are rushing off to the airport to get on flights. And the snacks from the weekend, as we're breaking down tables, there's chocolate and there's energy drinks and sometimes there's whiskey and, we're all eating and taking part of this stuff as we're breaking down because why not, We'll just keep going.
Yeah, I wouldn't name any names, but if I need like, a drink, there's, like, 2 or 3 of the brands where I know where to go.
You know where to go.
There's
Yeah,
whiskey
exactly.
stash
For
somewhere.
sure.
Yeah.
I find that there's something else about the brands, like, the ones doing the presentations that people probably don't understand or don't realize is, and this is something I've learned by working with Isotope and having done multiple of these events, is that you have to be on 100% of the
Mhm.
time, the entire time you're presenting. It's not like you
Yeah.
got, you're on for an hour, you do a bunch of work and then you sit down. No, guests come up and you got to start over again and it's got to be 100%
Yeah.
enthusiasm the entire time. And by the end of the day, yeah, we do go out and I don't get to see Jose in person apart from one of these events. So when we do get together, we go to supper, we bring out clients, or we'll go hang out with Chris and Sulis or whoever
Mhm.
that's at the show. So the other brands are friends. It's exhausting.
Yeah.
My kids think that I'm going off for the weekend, hanging out with my friends, talking about watches all day. Dude, by the time I get back to the hotel room at 9, 10 o'clock, I just crash. And then you gotta
Yeah.
get up early, like you said, and get back to the event and do it all over again.
Yeah.
And then you gotta fly out either right after the event or the next morning early. Like,
Yeah.
it's there's a lot
It's a
that goes
lot.
into this that people don't see.
There's a lot. Yeah. My husband's lucky if he gets 2 words from me back when I, get back to the hotel usually at night, and I usually just say, "I'm okay, going to bed, night, see you tomorrow, talk to you tomorrow," and there's an understanding now at this point, like, we're just not gonna talk over this weekend. I don't have anything left in me by the time and I consider myself sort of an extrovert in a lot of ways. I my battery sort of charges when I'm around people, but, there's a limit, I think,
Yeah.
especially when it's just thousands and hundreds of people that you're talking to throughout the day, and yeah, you're on, and you're on from the moment you step down into the hotel lobby because there might be brands that are staying there, right? So you really you're on from the moment you step outside until you're back in your hotel room at the end of the night. Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
So, is there any moments, traveling to these big shows or doing projects with brands that you've done where you're like, "Okay, this is the coolest job ever." Is there, like, a standout thing?
Yeah. Oh, certainly, certainly, and I have to thank our partnership side of the company for allowing me to go do these really cool pieces, whether they've been for Worn and Wound or sometimes just for the brand, when it's a white label project, but, um oh man, there's been a lot of really cool ones. I think one in particular that stands out for me, was a few years ago, we did a project for Aviate, and they had a watch coming out, that resembled the Bell X-1 plane,
Mm,
and we did this commercial for them. We flew out to California, and we went to, the desert, and there was this just completely dried up lake bed that we shot this video on. Had a guy on this really cool old, I think it was a Triumph motorcycle, um, and we got to just film this, like, incredible commercial. I got to take photos of this guy out there in this desert, and I was with an incredible team. Chris Coe, I don't know if you know him. He's just a big photographer and videographer here in the watch industry, but, it was just an incredible experience to be out there for an entire day and to it was the first time that I really was able to direct in a way that I've always wanted to and really got to see this project through from, like, the ideation all the way out to, the final assets delivery, but yeah, it was just an incredible experience, and I've had several of those, getting to travel, and I think particularly when I can travel with a team, I it's boring when I'm just by myself, but that's a huge standout. I was really proud of that project. I thought it was really cool too. The watch was really, really neat in their sort of homage to this really cool plane and history, was neat, and they did it in a really, like, tasteful way, I think, too, which is, as you guys know, hard to do in the
Yeah.
watch industry. Sometimes they're a little on the nose or a little too cheesy, but, yeah, they did a good job with that one for sure.
Are you hiring?
I'll let you know, yeah.
It sounds like a great job you have.
Yeah, it's fun, it's fun, it's a lot of work, but it takes me to a lot of places that I've never been before. I've gotten to travel out of the country for projects, and we've gone to Germany to film things and obviously Switzerland, and yeah, I can't imagine, like, if I was to tell myself, 7 or 8 years ago when I'm in physical therapy that you're gonna do this, I would have laughed, like, "Are you
Mm,
kidding me? That's silly and stupid, and who wears watches?" And,
yeah.
um yeah, here I am. So it's I'm really, really, I guess I'm gonna say lucky again, but I'm lucky to do what I do and glad to be part of this really awesome team that I have too. And I think, one thing I don't think people realize is the collaboration that is involved with everyone. We have big brainstorming meetings now with the entire team. So even if your job is like shop shipping, you can contribute to ideas and things that we do here, events and podcasts and editorial. And I think that's really neat, that everyone can be involved. And another photo shoot that stands out is a few years ago we did a limited edition with De Poncel, and we got this. I think it was like a '69 Mustang in Santa Barbara, California. And Nellie happened to be with me. Nellie, she really manages our partnership side. She was involved in most of our windups up until recently, and she got to go out there with me because I think we were scouting for maybe the new San Francisco location, so we were out there already. But it was kind of a girls' trip, which doesn't really happen very often, obviously, in our team. And we're in this convertible Mustang listening to Sheryl Crow. We're driving up the coast and, on our way to meet this model for this photo shoot, and it was just a really incredible experience and so much fun, you know? And I always try to have fun on every single shoot that I do here, and, I want the models to have fun. I want our subjects or people that are storytelling to have fun. So, I always try to make that the end goal is to just walk away and have a good time.
If, anyone's having trouble remembering who Nelly is, she's the one who lists and reads off the brands that participate in
Yeah.
the wind-up shows on the
She
podcast.
does, yeah, she's our wind-up mastermind.
Yeah,
We have a great events team now, with Myra and Michelle on board, and she's maybe doing a little bit less on the planning, but for the big shows, she's certainly still very much involved, and she's awesome and great, and we love her.
yeah, I worked with her, when I was doing the, pictures and the updating the wind-up pages for the brands. Every time they wanted, 3 different watches to be displayed, I'd replace them with the
Yeah,
ones that were on there, and I did that for her for a while, and that was a lot of fun. She's great to work with.
yeah, she's awesome.
So, you talked about press trips and all that stuff, and how do press trips influence or not influence the coverage today?
That's a good question.
Like when, Tudor brings out 12
Yeah.
journalists and they all go diving together.
Yeah, look, I'd like to say that we were not influenced by it, but I think we don't also ignore the fact that they're spending a lot of money flying us to these places and dining us with good food, and you know, the least we can do is to cover the watch that they're taking us out there to cover. So there's never been a situation where I think we haven't covered something when we've been on the trip. Now, the extent of that coverage is up to us, and how much we want to talk about it. But certainly I think we've always, yeah, we've always just written about the thing we're there to write about, and they're there to show us. And whatever the opinion is the opinion. Zach is actually currently with Omega out in Bern, I think. And when he comes back, he's going to be writing about these watches in detail, and I don't know what he's going to say. I haven't talked to him yet. So, um, I think again, our opinions are our opinions, but we always appreciate the fact that the brands are putting us up on their dime too. And as you know, a lot of the bigger brands, they don't skimp out. Like, you're usually flying business, you're put in a nice hotel, you go out to a lot of nice dinners, and that's not something that I think we should negate. I think we can appreciate that, and because of that, we're gonna cover whatever we're there to cover, you know? But again, the opinion is still gonna remain the same no matter what. The
What
brands
if,
don't have influence over that.
what if the watch is a real POS?
Well,
And now you're
well,
there for 2 days.
yeah, yeah, that's true, that's true. I don't think there's I mean, it's hard to say that there's been a situation where that's happened because a lot of times when if it's a situation where they're really flying us out, it's something big usually, and
Yeah,
I
they
I
probably have a
don't
lot
think
of
we've been in a
confidence in it too.
situation where there's been like a dud, you know, for something that's larger. But we've certainly turned down press trips too when we just don't wanna go or we don't have the resources to send someone at the time, but, yeah.
Yeah. So your photography has a very distinct feel. Brent mentioned it before you came onto the air with us, that he
Oh,
really likes your style.
oh, thanks.
How would you describe your visual style?
Ah, that's really hard to answer. I so I feel like my style actually changes depending on what I'm trying to achieve in the photos, but, um it makes me feel really good if people look at my page and feel like there is a distinct style. That I mean, I think that's, like, the highest compliment as a photographer when people see your photo without even seeing your name, and I've gotten this compliment, they're like, "Oh, I know that was your image." I'm like, "That's really cool. That's so cool." That it's almost like reading an article and not knowing who the author is, and then you know by, you know, their style, right? Um, but I do feel like I often try to challenge myself so much with certain photo shoots that I do that, sometimes I go out of my sort of norm, you know, in style and editing, but, um, yeah, that's cool to hear that you guys think that I have a unique style. I don't think about it necessarily, I always just edit to whatever I feel, but I certainly think I gravitate towards the same tone, and I think perhaps, you know, if you use the same camera for a period of time, your images are often gonna look the same unless you're really drastically different. But, yeah, that's pretty cool.
What comes first for you, the watch or the story?
I think the story for me. Yeah, because you can I'll say, like, you can buy me into a watch by the story, and I've bought watches because of the story, then I realized, like, this watch isn't for me, but I bought into that storyline. You know how many Speedmasters I've owned? I've owned, like, 6 at this point. 6 Speedmasters, that's crazy, and I just, like it's the damn story, and I see documentary
You still miss
videos
your
of
Mark II?
NASA. I do, yeah, but I know I can't, I'm not a chronograph person. I've learned this, I'm not, and I have to say no because I just don't wear it, you know, and I don't use it, and,
I'm not a chronograph person either, but I've been wearing this a lot.
yeah. Yeah. What about you? Is it for all of you guys, is it the story? Is it the watch?
For me, it's definitely the story. In fact, when Ariel Adams was on the show, I think one of the things he said was that, of course, a brand is out there to romance you, and I'm open to the romancing. You know what I mean? And that's
Mhm.
exactly
Yeah.
how I feel about it. I
Yeah.
mean, if it's just a piece of equipment, I mean, I guess I care about the specs and this and that and the other thing, but really, I gotta admit, I want to be romanced just like Ariel Adams wants to
Yeah.
be romanced. I want to be
Yeah.
swept up in the idea of it. I want to, and Andrew McCutcheon said an interesting thing too. He said sometimes I just want the energy that a
Mhm.
that a big brand brings me, and that energy comes from that story. You know what I mean? So when you look
Yeah.
down and you think, yeah, that's the story I want. That's what I want to tell the world about myself today. That's the story.
Yeah.
I like that.
Totally.
I'm all about the story too. I cover a lot of smaller independent micro brands, and I want to hear. There is no story with the watch normally. I need at least the story of the person. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And usually there is a really good story actually with from the actual person that maybe
Yeah.
translates into the design a little bit. So all about the story for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's funny, I'm completely opposite.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I've been in this for a really long time, and I've heard lots of stories, and when it comes down to the end of the day, if I'm gonna have a watch, I'm the one who's living with the watch, not the story.
Yeah.
So I want
Yeah.
the watch to have the specs, the feel, the sound, the accuracy. I have to like the watch, and for me,
Yeah.
it comes down to actual product.
Mhm.
If there's a story that goes along with it, cool. Like that Fortis Nova Knot that I have on my desk that I just showed you guys. Um Yeah, okay, it went up in a space balloon and hung out in space for a while. It went in with some rockets, came back down. It's a work 17. The dude that does the video is super charming. I don't care.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I've got the watch on my wrist. It feels like a freaking tank.
Yeah.
The bezel action is one of the best I've ever felt. It's super accurate. It glows like and that's what makes me happy. I tell people about the space stuff when they ask about it, and I regurgitate the story. But you know,
Yeah.
yeah, me, it's product first.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Well, I'm just curious because of your background in photography now, and is there ever a point where you've had a watch in, you've taken the photography, and it's completely changed your opinion about the watch?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I think, there's just so many things that you can see in person that you don't see online, and there's, as you know, a lot of magic that we do as photographers sometimes to make these watches look good, and there's watches that are just, a pain in the ass to shoot, and you're like, I would never buy this watch because, man, you can't even read this thing, with the reflections or whatever. Um, so certainly that it's been a negative influence, and it's also been a positive influence. There's watches I've had come through the studio where, maybe I wasn't previously interested, but then seeing it in person sort of changed my mind, and uh, I always think that there's something special about getting a macro lens on a dial in particular, right? And shooting those really up close imagery, and that is where you're like, "Oh, wow, they spent a lot of time on this." This is just absolutely perfect and beautiful, and it's also why I've bought so many Grand Seikos in my collection too over the years, and have sold most, because at the end of the day, like, I'm not a dress watch person in general, like, that's not something I naturally wear, but every time one has come through my studio and I've shot it, I am just in awe of this watch and how beautiful they are and the craftsmanship and again, getting that macro lens on some of those dials and you're just like, "Wow." I mean, just jaw-dropping, and it's influenced me to buy them. Um, but it is interesting and yeah, I would say it's really 50-50. Sometimes it's been positive, sometimes it's been negative, just depending on the watch itself. It's a really cool position to be in where we can test these watches before spending our own dollars on them. I know not everyone has that ability, especially in sort of the independent and micro brand space where you can't go see these in person except for at a big show, right? A lot of these other brands you can go into most of the time your dealer to look at, but
Right.
yeah, I've got 2 watches today that I'm shooting later that are coming out soon from a micro brand that, I was really surprised by. Yeah, shooting them. I was like, "Oh, these are actually really nice," you know?
Do you approach shooting watches differently now than when you first started? And also a second question, what is your setup? I'm a bit of
Oh,
a gear nut, so
yeah.
what's your go-to?
Yeah, I certainly have in a lot of different ways. When I first started, I used constant light a lot, and I still have my constant light, and occasionally we'll pull it out. But I've started shooting with strobes more in the last probably 3 years, um, and I find that I can control the light a little bit more. It's way more powerful, and I can play with it. I can play with shadows in a way that the constant light was kind of hard to adjust, but my setup now is, I've really transferred over to shooting Leica in the last maybe, yeah, 2 years, and, I know that sounds bougie, they're expensive. They're really expensive cameras, and I've shot nearly everything. I've shot Sony and Canon and Fuji, at this point, and they're all wonderful, and I have a Panasonic and I have a Fuji still. I still love shooting with other brands, and I still tell people you can't go wrong if you're buying a new full frame camera, like, whatever you like holding, just buy that one because
Mhm.
they're all so good. But I, uh, I got into the Leica world a few years ago and I was just amazed with the photos, and as someone who my job is to sit and edit through thousands of photos a year, I need something that I'm not gonna spend a ton of time behind my computer editing, and I find that those files, I minimally have to touch, and I think for me, it helps my workflow. I just simply like it. I do think there's, like, this Leica 3D pop that mimics almost what you can get in a medium format, and you can get that with these cameras, which is
Mhm.
pretty neat, and, yeah, I love the simplicity of them, and the build quality. They feel like they're gonna be around for 10 years, and when you pick up a Sony, it's just like it's plastic, and I don't love that feeling, and I like that, my Leicas are gonna patina and they're gonna show metal underneath, and
Mhm.
I don't know, I kinda like that. I'm gonna grow with them. But, uh but yeah, that's my setup now, and I typically when I'm shooting watches, I shoot with, I've got 100 macro that I shoot with. I think that's like my workhorse of a lens for studio photography. And then when I'm shooting lifestyle, I shoot with, like a Q3 43, so the 43 millimeter lens. I really like that in conjunction with the other Leica body that has, like, typically a 75 on it, and then I shoot both of those sort of simultaneously for a lot of the lifestyle stuff. Um, I have a big 70 to 200 as well that I pop on occasionally when needed, but I find, like, the 43 and the 75 cover about 95% of what I need in
Mhm.
most shoots, at least, yeah. Unless
Yeah.
I'm, like, outdoors, again, in the desert, I'm shooting something big, then I'll bring a big telephoto. Yeah.
Awesome.
And for you, what separates a good watch photo from a great one?
I don't know. I come back from every shoot thinking I have all duds, honestly. Like, I'm so critical of my own photography. For others, I think, lighting is, like, the key player for me when I look at others and their photography. Um I think if you can mimic natural light with artificial light, you've mastered it? And when I look at a photo and I can't tell, like, that's amazing. And I look at the photos that I see on Instagram, and I that's the first thing I look at is like, what is the light? Where's the shadows? Does this look fake? Or is the shadow play look real and realistic? And um that to me is like what makes a great photo if you really know how to mimic and work your lighting. Yeah. More than the macro photography, more than sharpness on everything, I think I like photos that look natural and don't look too overly sharpened, because I don't think that's realistic. When our eyes focus on one thing, other things get sort of blurred. So I like a little bit of a depth of field with anything, that you're shooting.
See,
That's my personal taste though.
What's something that you see all the time in watch photography that immediately tells you somebody hasn't quite figured it out yet?
Everything
Oof.
is sharp.
Yeah, I think that or, I think when you're editing photos often, it's really easy to push those sliders a little too far. I think, you guys maybe understand that maybe more minimal is better, and as you do this more, you learn that. And when someone takes that clarity the slider and they put it all the way to 100, right? Or yeah, just like overly sharpened, thinking that that's gonna be the better look, right? But I think, yeah, there's things that are it's nice to have, like, a little softness, and something else that I've really come around to is, like, harsh light. I think early on, I avoided harsh light like the plague. And now I think, like, oh, if you understand how to use it and you understand how to expose for it, like, harsh light can look really cool. Like, if you're out in the sunlight and you wanna take a really bright wrist shot, like, that doesn't have to look bad. I think we always tell like, a big advice people give is, like, go in the shade, go in your car. Yes, I think for most people, like, that's a good general rule of thumb, but I like playing with, like, that direct sun nowadays and really trying to mimic that because I think it's a challenge to try to do that, but, you can come away with some, like, really cool photos that way.
In your opinion, are brands getting better or worse at visual storytelling?
Visual storytelling? Oh, this is a tough one. I Yeah, my honest opinion is worse. Yeah, I'll say. I think I've already seen a lot of bigger brands using AI, and it freaking sucks, and I'm, like, really upset by it. I don't think it's that hard to take your watch and put it on a model and shoot it. It's just not, and I think they're trying to save money. I don't wanna see an AI, I wanna see the real watch, or I wanna see it on a real person and or on a real setting, and I can't stand that, yeah, brands are starting to roll out AI for their imagery. And I don't know, maybe they'll change their ways eventually with maybe some feedback, but it really sucks to see.
Or maybe they'll hear this and make all kinds of changes.
I doubt it. I doubt that I'm gonna push the needle at all, but, um, I yeah, I think there's so many good creators out there, and there's so many great ideas that people bring to the table and storytelling, and, some brands do a really great job of it, some don't, but I have started to see the insurgence of a lot of AI
Yeah.
imagery. Yeah, and I think it's fooling people, like, you're to see a watch and to see 0 reflections and to see 0 color in the bracelet and 0 shadows, it's like, it's just fake. You might as well be looking at the soldier image that you're looking at on the web page, doesn't really do anything for me. And I think for people that are primarily buying online nowadays, that makes it even harder because you really don't know what this watch looks like in reality.
That's true.
Yeah.
So you've seen the industry from multiple angles as a collector, in media, and as a creator. What's the biggest misconception about the watch industry?
Oh my gosh, you're hitting me with some hard questions today. I don't know. That's one I might have to come back to on that. It's a tough one. I don't know what the biggest misconception would be. Yeah.
Okay,
I might have to come back to you on that one. I'll
no
th I'll
problem.
I'll think about it in the back of my head, though.
No problem. So what trends excite you now, and which ones are overplayed?
Overplayed.
You can
I
say integrated bracelet watches as overplayed.
You think so?
That's allowed.
That's your
Oh
opinion?
yeah,
I don't mind integrated bracelet watches, but I will say I don't prefer them. I've owned a few now. I like changing my straps. I think it gives your watch new life, and if you're limited by that, it limits the wear, you know? And I think especially if spending top dollar on one of these watches, I think if it's just a more affordable piece you have in your collection as a whole, it's not so bad, but, that's a good one. I think I'm getting tired of I say this as I'm wearing, like, a pink dial. I'm getting tired of the pastels. I think I'm ready to kinda move on from that. I think that's been a trend. I don't know, what would you say, 4 years,
yeah, 4 or
maybe?
5 years.
4
Yeah,
Yeah. I'm ready to kinda move on beyond that, but again, it's just colors. Maybe I'm being too picky, and everyone deserves to have as much color as they want. But that's something that I'm like, I think brands that are just now getting on it, I feel like they're a little late, to that a little bit. But again, it's like, I don't wanna hate on anyone because if you're reaching a new market with these new colors, then go for it, you know? Um, Mark, I'm not a hater. I have a hard time, like, being so critical on brands.
okay, so then what trends are you excited about then?
Excited, I think the things I'm most excited about are seeing more independent brands, thinking outside the box and doing some pretty cool complications and things. Christopher Ward's a brand that comes top to mind with what they did with the Bel Canto and what they did with the Loco, and, this sort of idea of hot horology coming into a place where people can afford these watches, I think is really, really cool. And when I've worn my Brooklynite Loco, and people are like, "Oh my god, what is that?" And they're just, incredibly amazed by it. That's a really cool thing to have and not have to spend $30,000 on,
Yeah,
So I'm
yeah,
I'm more excited to see these and it doesn't even have to be complications, but I'm just excited to see brands thinking outside the box in terms of even design and surprising people, and I saw some sneak peeks at Wind Up Dallas of a couple of things that a couple of those brands are working on, and, it really put a smile on my face because they're not trying to reach the masses, and I think that's good to not. If you're doing that, you might as well just, like, have an homage to a sub or, whatever, the thing that's the most popular, and I think I kinda want the thing that's like the ugly duckling. I think those are cool right now, like, that's what I'm gravitating towards personally is, like, the thing that not everyone likes and wants. That's, uh that's usually the thing that I gravitate towards and I'm happy about.
and it's funny you say that. Is Jose, when I hang out with him at the shows and people come up to the booth or the counter, if he sees a Tudor on someone, he literally gets upset.
Really? Oh,
Yeah,
no.
like, you could be wearing something like, different and
Yeah,
outside the box, like you said, or a different complication or different colors, and you're
yeah,
wearing a Tudor that everyone else
yeah,
is wearing,
yeah.
and it's,
I can't hate
Jose
on
and his
Tudor, though. I like a
no, I
Tudor.
trust me,
Yeah.
I've owned a lot of Tudors recently too, so
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
and I think he said that it was to Steve.
Yeah,
Steve,
I was there. I was there when you said
Mhm.
this.
Steve had come to see me in Toronto because he had his Pelagos Ultra, and I had the standard Pelagos, and I wanted to compare them side by side.
Yeah.
And Steve also owns a Moonshot chronograph, and so he got upset at Steve. Says, "You're wearing that, and you come and see me? You could be wearing your Moonshot." And I had to explain to him since I
Yeah.
wanted to see it compared to mine, because just side by side.
Yeah. So I
So
I have a question for all of you. When you go to these fairs, do you consider the opinions of others? Does that make a decision on the watches you take with you? Or do you just bring whatever you truly wanna wear? Because I have a hard time with that. I struggle 'cause I sometimes I'm like, "Oh, I definitely wanna bring this piece," but then I'm like, "People are gonna think I'm boring if I'm at a wind-up fair wearing this watch for 3 days," you know? And I wanna bring, like, the thing that I think will impress people or, like, make them wanna talk about it. Does that affect you at all?
well, I have to wear an isotope, so that
Well, that's
that
what not working for a brand
yeah,
specifically,
yeah.
yeah.
One of the last shows, or it was actually a year ago now in Vancouver, I think I was gonna wear an isotope actually, but I was helping doing the signs and stuff. So I had a Timex 8 lap Iron Man reissue that had just came out.
Yeah.
And I totally forgot to switch watches, and I had more compliments on that Timex than I think I've ever had on a watch in my entire
That's
life, and
awesome.
it was it was great because I was trying on different watches, so I, could set that down. I didn't have to really worry about it too much, and,
Yeah.
uh, and then, I ended up doing the same at the Dallas show a couple of weeks ago. I just wore G-Shock.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Yeah, but no one's gonna get mad at you for wearing a G-Shock or a Timex. I mean, that's pretty
yeah,
much
that's
non uh, the but Kat, likewise, you're in the media, you're with Warner Wound, and let's say hypothetically you are wearing Christopher Ward.
Uh-huh.
How do you feel when you go and have meetings with Fortis and with
I know.
other brands, or
I think about it, that I do.
you're
I,
wearing a
like
Tag Heuer and you're going to visit Tudor? Like,
I
how do you
know.
feel about that?
I don't let it affect me, but I certainly think about it. You know, I
Sure.
when I was packing for, Wind Up Dallas, I wanted to bring, my Omega and my Grand Seiko, and I thought, "Should I wear a watch that from a brand that's gonna be there? Would that be a nice thing to" I have plenty of watches from these brands, and I ended up did making that decision, but and certainly when going to, like, Watches and Wonders, I Watches and Wonders, I actually try to not wear a watch that, a brand is exhibiting there on purpose, but honestly, no one cares. The brands don't care. I've never had a brand call me out, on anything. The only I will say in Dallas, I'm wearing my New York hat today. I don't know if a photo of this or a video of this is gonna go live, but I'm wearing this for Josh Shanks in BJ because they called me out for wearing a Dodgers hat, at Wind Up, and they were offended by that, so it's the hat you wear that gets called out, not the watch. They don't care about the watches.
Having been in the industry for so long and having had direct conversation with brands, and so many
Yeah.
brands, I'm curious, is there something you think that brands or industry insiders mistakenly believe the collectors care about, but we really don't?
Hmm. Yeah, that's a good question. I feel like collectors care about a lot of the small intricate details.
I think the question is, what do collectors care about that the general mass public don't? And the general mass public are probably the ones buying most of the watches.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's an easier question, because we're like the nerd level that we're on to buy these watches and to have multiples of them. I know I talk about watches to my husband and his eyes just like glaze over when I'm talking about crystals and movements and things like that.
Yeah, my wife
Um,
hears the, Charlie Brown "wah, wah, 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 wah,
yeah,
wah," when I talk
yeah,
about watches.
totally, totally. But I think it's more about what brands aren't taking away from the community and the collectors because there's still brands that release watches without a quick adjust, on a bracelet. In 2026, are you kidding me? Like, that should be standard at this point. Like, that's who doesn't want that on their bracelet? Like, is that a question? And you don't? You don't want that? You don't, or you don't care?
I don't care. Look,
Okay. Well, I think there's a difference between not caring and not wanting it.
right, if there are little
Yeah.
holes in the clasp and you can have some micro adjust,
Mhm.
or if it's a butterfly and there are at least half links and you can
Yeah.
dial in that size, that's enough for me. Yes, it's
Yeah.
cool to have a clasp with a really cool mechanism inside and solid, it's not too big, it fits nice,
Yeah.
well finished. That's great. But once I find the size of my watch, I'm not playing with that size. I'm not changing
See, I've
because I'm
never
hot or I ate salt.
See, I do. I mean, I've learned to wear my watches a little bit on the bigger side, and, especially in the summer, and then as the day goes on, it sort of adjusts, but I will say, like, to me, having that has been such a value of any watch that I have in my collection, I will say. And I have watches that don't, obviously, but it always bugs me that that's not the case, because then I have to find a tool, and then I have to move it, and it's the whole thing. But to me, I think, like, that's something that stands out just because you see it with the smaller micro brands that are doing it, and then it's like, why can't this big box brand do this at this price point, right? That should be a given. Um,
It's
you
taken a
know
while before a lot of the smaller brands nailed down the micro adjust thing properly. A lot
That's
of them were
true,
just
that's
using
true.
the same Chinese micro
Yeah,
adjust. It had huge gaps between the links and the bracelet and the clasp, or it
yeah.
was too long or too thick. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at the new Notice watches. I have
Mhm.
the Obscura 2 in for review,
Yeah.
and they've refined their clasp, and I have to tell you, it is perfect.
Yeah.
It
No, they
is
do a good job.
so much better than it was.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, but, to that point, I think there's these small things like, anti-reflective coating and things that, the general public wouldn't even bother to ask about or care about, certainly, but we do. We're we're picky about those things, and I think we're allowed to be, especially if we're spending, thousands of dollars in our collections, we're allowed to be super picky. And I don't know, I'm still trying to think of it, if there's something that a brand isn't seeing or talking about that's not hitting with the enthusiast community. It's tough to say. Probably, I think, maybe it's storytelling. Maybe we're the weird ones, and I don't know if everyone really cares about the story of a watch. They just they like it when they see it, because the mass market general public, they just go into their ADs and they look at these watches and they don't know the stories. I've heard their spiels. They don't know anything about these watches. They like them, or it's a name brand or whatever. Certainly. So maybe they spend sometimes too much time on that. I don't know. It's
Yeah,
tough to say.
yeah.
Well, it's like what we said at the beginning, when I was talking about the difference between the Hydro Conquest and, let's say, the Legend Diver. I remember when
Yeah.
I was taking photos down in Mexico City last week, and Janik Jenny, the vice president of Longines, came up and he asked me. He said, do you have a favorite, or which size do you prefer? And I said, well, you know what? I really like the 39 millimeter size. I know that's for me. I said, but I completely understand why you did 42, because you're going to sell a boatload more 42.
Yeah.
And he pulled up his sleeve and he had a 39 on as well. And he says, exactly. He says, but you're also right. We're going to sell a lot more 42.
Yeah.
Bob's told us the same story years ago when he was working with a Jim Bijou, a retailer in Toronto, and said to him, oh man, this Zulu time came out. You've got to get the 39 millimeter version of this. And it just didn't
Yeah.
fly off the shelves. And
Yeah.
I think as enthusiasts, sometimes we really mistake our influence on the market and on market decisions, but also, like, why should we influence those decisions?
Mhm.
We have to
Yeah.
understand that these brands, especially at that scale, they have to move a lot of product. And so they're
Yeah.
going to make decisions that move product.
Totally.
And
So I think maybe that's not an industry problem. That's an actual enthusiast problem. We don't get it, like,
Yeah, we don't get it.
yeah.
That's totally true. That's absolutely true.
Yeah.
Is, the watch community becoming more inclusive, or is it just appearing to be?
I think it is. Yeah, I think it is. I see that with with the wind up fairs. I see so many more women coming to the shows and events that we have, and I don't really attend meetups in the way that I used to in the past necessarily, but there's so many more prominent female uh Instagram profiles, and I wouldn't call them all influencers necessarily, but photographers and people that are out there, and I think that's great because, yeah, there was a time that there wasn't many, and if you were kinda shy and you didn't wanna, it's like kind of a boys club type of situation, but, yeah, and I think it's inclusive. I would hope that it's still inclusive. It feels that way to me, but maybe I'm not as in tune as I once was with, the price point of the watches you have too in your collection, and I don't know, I still think there's an influence happening with social media where you feel like you gotta buy something because that's what everyone else has, but I appreciate people that really know what they enjoy and like, and even if it's, Seikos or Timex or whatever it might be, and appreciating those watches. Hopefully they don't get bullied up. But again, I feel like maybe I'm a little out of touch with the community side as much nowadays because I'm just not in it.
Hmm, that's funny, that leads to my next question. What's a watch you should love but just don't?
I should love.
Yeah, like,
Um,
here, I'll give you one
yeah,
example. For me, it's the
yeah,
Bel Canto. I
yeah,
get it. It goes ding.
yeah.
I don't like it.
Well, here's what I'll say. As an owner, I that watch didn't do a lot for me for years, and I saw it in person. I picked up the Dragonfly, which is like their special to their, boutiques, and I love the dial color on it. I thought it was beautiful. I just talked about this on a Worn and Wound podcast, but it was one of the most surprising complications that I would have thought I would care about. But that ding going off every hour as someone who's at their computer chugging away at edits and getting into things, it's this, like, reminder that it's, like, the top that, "Oh, I've been working on this for an hour, like, I need to step away or I need to do something else." It just, like, shocked me how kind of useful it was, and I kinda get it now. Something that seemed like I guess, just like a novelty at first, it feels like, "Oh, this is something that's, like, kind of practical to maybe a lot of people." I haven't worn it on a photo shoot yet, but that's another situation where I feel like it could be useful for me when you just get lost when you're working sometimes. It's nice to kinda have that hourly reminder a little bit, but, uh, yeah, I'm trying to think of other things that I just don't get, that's popular.
My uncle had a clock that chimed every hour. I hated the thing.
Well, clock, so yeah, that's maybe a little bit more obnoxious. Um, oh man, I thought I had something right on the tip of my tongue. I mean, maybe it's like maybe it's, here's a brand in general I can appreciate, but I don't get, and that's, Breguet. They feel so maybe I don't know, they feel even the newer ones, they feel like they're from a time, like, 50, 70 years ago, I just, like I don't get that today, they don't feel modern to me, they're absolutely gorgeous, and I'm in awe when I see them, and especially when I look at, their movement on the case back, but I just, like, I don't see the appeal. They're
Yeah,
just like nothing's hitting for me there, you know? I know that's
like they're stuck in time.
yeah, maybe a little bit. I think there's probably a few brands that way, but they have their collectors and people that love them. So what do I know? But yeah, that's just a brand that's never hit with me, for sure.
So when it comes to collecting watches, have your buying habits changed since you've been working in watch media? Like I know for me, I get hands on with new things, at least a new watch every week or more. So it sort of stunts that
Yeah,
itch to buy a new watch. Is it
yeah,
similar for you or?
yeah, yeah. I would say so. I would say
Yeah.
so. Again, I'm lucky that I get to see things in person so often now, but certainly, being in the industry, I'm not as influenced as much anymore. Probably a little bit jaded, I think, too, just so that we see so much constantly. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
sure you guys have your emails flooded daily with press releases and things coming out, and things just don't feel as special anymore as they once did, so I don't feel as inclined to, like, jump on the bandwagon and pick up a piece in the way that I used to, but I can certainly still be impulsive sometimes, especially at a fair when when I'm around a lot of people that are picking up things and you're meeting the random person and you're hyped on a piece. But I really do try to like take my time a little bit more nowadays with buying and selling things, and things are lasting longer in my collection. I think for that reason to really think on watches and not be as
Mhm.
impulsive because I'm bad about that. I really
Me too.
am.
Yeah, it used to be a time when Basel Fair used to come around, and because I was going through watches fairly quickly, pretty much the story of my life, I would actually dread Basel Fair because I didn't want something to come out that I really wanted, especially back then. Because if something came out at Basel Fair in like 2002, you didn't see that in the stores, or it wasn't available till like October, November.
Yeah.
That was a long time to wait. So I would dread it, and now I've owned so many that I don't know what I want anymore. Nothing really totally blows me away anymore.
Yeah.
It's a different animal altogether, and like Bob says, we get so many things that come through our hands, and we get to play with so many watches when we go to these fairs. It's weird. It's a weird dynamic. It really is
Yeah.
different. So what's your most sentimental watch that you own and why?
Mm, that's a great question. I would say at the moment, uh, sort of maybe tied between 2 watches, and they're both from the same brand, Fears. My very first Fears watch was actually a gift from Nicholas, and it was for our 1-year anniversary of 10 and 2, and, it was oh, man, I think this was like a Red Cliff quartz that he did they don't even make this watch anymore, but, he engraved it on the back for me and Cal, and we both got one. She got, I think, like, maybe a UTC version or GMT version, and then I got just the time only, like, polar white dial. And that just feels really special, you know, it was sort of like a mark in time for us, I actually need to change the battery. The battery's dead in it. I need to go do that. It's a good reminder. And the second one is a Fears that I had custom made in the last couple of years. My dad passed away about 3 years ago, and, I inherited his, '55 Plymouth Plaza car, and, my dad bought this in the early '90s and spent most of his life, you know, restoring it slowly by himself, and I'm not gonna get to keep this car. I just, it's a pain to drive. I don't there's this, like, what do you call it? The 3 on the tree, like, the
Yeah,
change
yeah,
I
yeah.
don't that's not for me, not for
Mhm.
me. It's very difficult, and, the car is like driving a bus. It's a full sedan, it's a four-door, also Plymouth, which I the steering wheel is, like, literally like this, and, um, I knew I was gonna
It's like driving a couch.
yeah. I knew I was gonna none of the other siblings wanted it, so we're gonna probably sell it. I still have it in the garage at the moment, but I commissioned, Nicholas to make a custom jumping hour because when I saw those jump hour watches, I immediately thought of like a car dial, you know, a dash and a speedometer, and, he did it in the dial. The color is the same color as the car. We matched it perfectly, and, we did a couple, like, small little things to it to, kind of pay homage to this car that I know I'm not gonna have forever. So that's a really special piece, and those 2 watches will, you know, never go anywhere in my collection.
No,
Mm.
that's awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
So how about some rapid fire questions now?
Let's do it.
All right. G-Shock, count it or not?
Wait, what? Count it or not?
Yeah. Does it count in a collection of
Just
G-Shocks?
no, 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 it doesn't count. They don't count.
They don't count?
Yeah, no.
Strap monster or bracelet purist?
A strap monster. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Vintage or modern?
Modern.
And one watch brand you think is misunderstood?
Oh, misunderstood.
That's not very rapid fiery.
Well,
Oh,
it's just
that's yeah, misunderstood. Oh my gosh, I'm, like, going through all the brand list in my mind right now. Um, wow, this is
Nelly's saying all those brands one after the other in your head right now.
yeah, I'm, like, going through all the brands. I don't know. That's a tough one. I don't know if I can answer that quick, rapid fire.
How about a watch that you love, but you'd never recommend?
Oh, oof. I would okay, I would say this watch only because I want one, and I probably will never, like, tell other people to buy it, but I really want a Plo Prof. Like, that's been on my list for a really long time. I've
Yeah, I've
never
heard you
gotten
say
that
that
watch.
before.
That's not a watch that you can just be like, "Yeah, you should buy this." Like, that's not something it's thick, it's huge. in many ways unwearable to most people, but I want one. I think they're cool. Yeah.
Lucy wants one too. Lucy at Watchbox Diaries from
Yeah.
Poland.
Yeah.
What's with women and profs? It's weird.
I think it's just like, yeah, the
It's a
juxtaposition of it's like a
ginormous,
huge yeah.
heavy chunk of metal.
They're cool
And
looking.
one hill you'll die on in watches.
Mm. One hill
Say
that
it.
I'll
NATO
die
straps suck.
No, I can't. I like a NATO. Um, one hill that I'll die on. I'm trying to think. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like the bracelet thing, like, the micro adjust is like that's a hill that I'll die on. I think that watches, if you have a bracelet, they should have some sort of micro adjust on them. For me, that's it. Maybe not for everyone, but that's certainly for me.
No, that works. No, I agree. It
Yeah.
has to have a micro adjust. It doesn't necessarily have to be on the fly, but it has to be able
Yeah.
to. You have to be able to dial in the
Yeah.
size. And
Yeah,
if
for
you
sure.
can't, it's just wrong. Like butterfly clasps that don't
Yeah.
offer half links,
Yeah.
that's just stupid
Exactly.
altogether.
Yeah. Yeah, especially when you're spending over, 4 figures on a watch for sure.
This Grand Seiko, in fact, has the little holes and has half links, and 2 half links
Mm.
is a little bit bigger than a regular link. So it's ridiculously infinitely adjustable, and I'm one
Yeah.
of those anal guys that wants the clasp centered properly. Boy, it took me like a month to get this thing down to where
Yeah.
I wanted it. Now I refuse to play with it because those stupid screws are so small.
Yeah, Grand Seiko's a big yeah, but they have, like don't they have they released
They have a new one,
a
but
new
it
class
apparently
or
according
something?
to is it Joseph? Who's the guy, the
Joe, yeah.
president? Yeah, apparently it's not available to purchase just the clasp. I
Oh,
would actually
interesting.
go out and spend money on just the clasp, just because it's
Yeah,
just like it
I
just
would too.
doesn't
Yeah.
feel the quality compared to the rest of the watch.
Yeah, same, same. Was that the last one? Was that the
Nope.
last question? Oh, we're still going.
No, actually, we have just a couple of last questions here. What are you trying to get better at right now?
Oh, I'm always trying to get better at photography. That's never ending. I don't think I'll ever reach the goal that I have internally for myself, but I always like to challenge myself in that way. So to that end, I think that's something I'm always going to be working on.
And what would you tell someone trying to get into watch media today?
Um, be prepared to put in a lot of hours, a lot. Like whatever you have in your head, multiply that by 3.
Yeah.
And, I think don't be afraid to put yourself out there. I think if you're a little timid, especially, I think the only way that you're going to make it in this industry is by being uncomfortable and putting yourself in situations you wouldn't and talking to people that you might be scared to reach out to. I think people would be surprised how many brands and CEOs actually read their DMs and messages. So I know early on when I was getting into photography and doing some freelance work, I got work from sending people a message and emails, and it does work eventually. Of all the no's you get, eventually you get a yes.
Yep,
So,
100%.
but yeah, I think just don't underestimate the amount of work is involved. And I think if you truly want to make it, there's going to be a decision time that you have to say, like, is this going to be full time? Is this going to be part time? Um, and you don't see all the hours that people put into this stuff, and including influencers, if that's what you want to do too. We saw what's his name, Ben's Watches was at our fair in Dallas, and
I saw him in New York.
that guy was shooting stuff all the time. He's shooting all these and you see a 60-second clip of him on Instagram, but it takes him. He's doing multiple takes and he's grabbing people and he's spending a lot of time recording and editing and yeah, just don't underestimate the time that's involved, no matter what facet you kind of want to get into.
What does success look like for you over the next 5 years?
5 years, 5 years. I mean, I would, my own personal goals, would love to be a creative director somewhere someday, but right now I'm really happy. I'm truly like just really satisfied with what I'm doing and where I am, and um I think just growing my department at Warren and Wound and growing the team is kind of my own goal right now at the moment.
And I think people underestimate how important contentness is.
Yeah,
Everybody's always trying to get more and get better and
yeah.
bigger and
It's like especially the American sort of
especially the
mindset.
American mindset
Yeah,
that you got to step back sometimes and realize, look,
the hustle.
I like what I'm doing now, and I'm pretty happy with what I'm doing, and please
Yeah,
keep
yeah,
growing with that That,
Totally. It's taken me some therapy to get to this point of saying that I'm happy with where I am, because I've always been someone that is always looking for the next opportunity in a lot of ways. But I've really landed at a great place, and I plan to, like, really plant my feet here for some time if I'm lucky. And it's not a bad thing to admit that you're just, yeah, you're happy with what you're doing, you know?
mm, mm,
Yeah.
mm. Last question for me. What's bringing you joy in watches right now?
Bringing me joy, I think honestly, these fairs, these watch fairs, whether, it's the stuff that you guys are doing, there's Intersect, there's the Wind Up fairs. I walk away every time feeling more connected than I ever have, and I think we lose that disconnect when we're in our own worlds and we're pumping out content constantly. We're putting it all out there into the ethos, and we don't always hear feedback from that. People don't always comment, and people don't always respond to the things we do. And when you show up to those events and you get to meet people and they're like, I bought this because of an article you did or a podcast. I'm like, whoa, whoa, people listen,
Yeah.
and it's, yeah, and read, but ultimately just like meeting people that are so excited. And I remember how excited I was. And again, I think 'cause we just get jaded, and I just find that, like, my passion for this industry and this hobby in general is, reinvigorated when I come back from those fairs for sure. That's like one of my favorite things about the years is going to those.
I have to admit, I'm really enjoying the fairs as well, and the friends we've
Yeah.
made with the other brands.
Yeah,
The
truly.
dinners after, we had a dinner in New York at Intersect after the doors closed. We had a big supper, just the brands, all of us together, and it was magical. It was just so much fun just hanging out. We were
Yeah.
all exhausted, and we were all making fun of things and poking fun at each other, but
Yeah.
it was so much fun. I
Yeah.
think that's one of the big things that I like most about the shows.
Yeah, me too.
All right, on behalf of the 3 of us, thank you again, Cat Shoulders, for coming on the show.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
If there's anything you'd like us to plug, cough, wind up, or anything else, please take the moment if you wanna
Yeah, of
talk
course.
about it.
Yeah, check out Worn and Wound if you haven't heard of us. And certainly if you're in the US and you're either in San Francisco, Chicago, or New York, we have these three fairs later this year, and San Francisco will be the first weekend in May. I'm really excited.
Very cool. If anyone would like to to follow you, your work, is Instagram the best
Yeah,
place?
Instagram, cat shoulders, super simple. Yep, you can find me there.
I'll put a link of it in the show notes. So the Time to Calibrate podcast is out every 2 weeks and can be found wherever you download your podcasts. If you would like to get a hold of us, our email is timetocalibrate@gmail.com, and you can DM us on Instagram at Time to Calibrate. That's pretty much the end of our show. Until next time, T2C out.